So anti-Semitic radicals, or racists here in the US, have been ramping up their public hatred. This time, the useful idiots are mimicking the history of the Nazi Party in Austria by denying Jews entry into a university in Columbus. This kind of vile actions are part of a greater problem that has been growing within the US for quite some time now. There has been a systemic tolerance for hatred towards people based on their race, thanks to programs like the anti-white DEI propaganda that the radical left has embraced for years now. Because of their tolerance, anti-Semites, like the ones we're seeing on these college campuses, feel emboldened. You see, ever since the terrorist attack on Israel last year, where innocent men, women, and children were slaughtered like animals, there has been a rise in hate crimes, physical assaults, and other general anti-Semitic incidents at major universities across the U.S. An example of this madness would be Shai Davidai, an assistant professor at Columbia Business School. He has been a central figure in the explosion of anti-Semitism at the Columbia University because he has a pro-Israel stance, and he is keeping that stance in the face of the rage and hatred from the anti-Israel and pro-Palestinian mob that is on his campus. You see, the good professor, who is also Jewish, was barred from entering his own campus during this most recent week of heightened tensions, thanks to the pro-Palestinian anti-Jewish demonstrations that are taking place there.
Are we not letting the media in? What? Can you back up, please? My card has been deactivated? Why? Can you back up, please? Wait. Whoa. Everybody, my card has been deactivated. This is Cass Holloway, the COO. This is Gerald Lewis. They were in the meeting where I asked them if Hamas is a terror organization, and they couldn't say that it is a terrorist organization. Why? I'm a professor. Why can I?
Shai,
No. Speak out loud so the media.
Shai, we are willing to take you to the math lawn.
No, I am a professor here.
We have a
Whoa, everybody quiet. I am a professor here. I have every right to be everywhere on campus. You cannot let people that support Hamas on campus and me, a professor, not go on campus. Let me in now.
Now, the university is citing safety concerns for the reason for denying the professor access. The administration expressed that they had an inability to ensure his safety amidst this charged atmosphere because of the protests. Now, naturally, the professor didn't take this lying down, and he made several public statements. He drew parallels between this situation that we're seeing now on his campus and the exclusion of Jewish academics in Nazi Germany before the Holocaust. He asserted that his rights as a Jewish professor and as an employee of the university entitled him to be on campus. He criticized his own university for allowing these pro-Hamas supporters on campus while restricting his access. And he has a point here. You see, these brazen radicals have already taken to blocking Jews from being on campus. Now, the group that is responsible for this madness right now is called Students for Justice in Palestine, or SJP. They are playing a key role in organizing many of these encampments. The umbrella organization, the National SJP, has been quoted as saying that we will seize our universities and force the administration to divest. And they put out a mission statement as recently as April 22nd that stated that we as students will reclaim our power on campus. There will be no classes or compliance with our institutions so long as their shameless profiteering off of our genocide persists. And they went on to say that through the student movement for a popular university, we will transform our mass mobilization into sustained, tangible power. We will seize control of our institutions, campus by campus, until Palestine is free. Watching these blatantly racist people choosing to terrorize and threaten those who might either support Israel or those who themselves just happen to be Jewish, including blocking entry onto campuses, does indeed remind me of the Nazi Party denying Jews entry into the University of Vienna back in Austria in 1938. You see, following the annexation of Austria by Nazi Germany, there was a systemic campaign of anti-Semitism that included legal and physical barriers preventing Jewish students from attending educational institutions. Now, this was part of a broader policy of racial purity and exclusion under the Nazi regime, which led to widespread persecution and ultimately the Holocaust, where millions of Jews were killed. Now, there are some differences, of course. Back in 1938, the anti-Semitism there was all part of state-sponsored systemic efforts to eradicate Jewish presence from all public spheres, which is fundamentally different in scale and intent from the incidents that we are seeing observing now on modern campuses. However, just because the government isn't actively, directly involved now, doesn't mean that there isn't some sympathy from them. And we can see this with leaders within the Democratic Party that seem to be actively encouraging and or supporting these lunatics. Which takes me to a Fox News story that I want to talk a little bit about. You see, Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC, wrote recently in a Twitter post in which she condemned the university for calling in police enforcement on nonviolent demonstrations of young students on campus, calling it escalatory, reckless, and dangerous, and said it represents a heinous failure of leadership that puts people's lives at risk. I condemn it in the strongest possible terms. Now, the reality is, my friends, if I were running a university, I'm sorry, I would never have allowed this to take place at all. You try to take over my campus, I'm kicking you all the hell out. I'm calling in the cops, we're getting you arrested, you're gone. And if you're a student at the university, you're banned from the university. Case closed, problem solved. Which takes me to the next point here. The Democratic Party right now has been co-opted by the radicals within their party. This is why you really don't see many elected officials from the Democrat Party saying anything. The silence from the current ruling party within Washington has been deafening. The muted response of Democrat elected officials on this anti-Jewish sentiment is led by a number of factors, including their decades worth of racism that their own party has embraced, thanks to things like identity politics. You see, because the left has been so hyper-focused on segregating the American people based on the color of one's skin, or gender, sex, etc., and using all of this as a wedge, as a way to push division within America, this has put the party in a bit of a bind, especially as the left has in recent years embraced the narrative that portrays Jews in general as part of a privileged majority due to perceived socioeconomic success and historical support for Israel that the U.S. has shown. This perception has led to a minimization of Jewish concerns, which includes excusing anti-Semitism and racism as a lesser issue compared to other forms of bigotry and racism. It is similar, for example, how the radical left has tried to pretend that racism towards white people isn't really a problem because, well, white people automatically have power and are privileged. Now, I am sure that there are many politicians on the left who are watching all of this with dismay and growing concern. But they don't seem to be speaking out. They are afraid of the growing sickness within their party, thanks in large part to the influence of so-called progressive radicals. You see, movements like that of the hate group Black Lives Matters and others like it have shown at best mixed feelings towards Jewish concerns, particularly when they intersect with criticisms of Israel. And then you couple this with something called intersectionality, which is a racist and sexist ideology which is all about dividing up humans into groups by using a theoretical framework of a person's social and political identities and then combining it to create different modes of perceived discrimination and or privilege. These factors include, but are not limited to, race, gender, class, sexual orientation, and disability. Intersectionality exists to identify and segregate people into different classes of privileged and those who are disadvantaged. Its sole purpose is to propagate anger and resentment within these groups against each other. And they've been wildly successful. There are so many useful idiots on college campus today who have been indoctrinated into these belief systems. But there is another problem here. And that is, you see, the left historically has embraced anti-Semitism here in America. And this is due, by the way, in large part to the influence of Marxist and socialist theories, which have often interpreted Jewish identity through the lens of economic and class struggles. For example, early Marxist theory critiqued Jewish people based on stereotypes and financial control and capitalism, which were seen as antithetical to socialist ideals. Jewish people have been historically scapegoated as the personification of capitalist excesses. And this scapegoating is rooted in long-standing stereotypes of Jews as moneylenders and financiers, a narrative that has been exploited to fit the anti-capitalist agenda of many radical left groups. And so the left remains largely silent on this growing hatred in the U.S. Which then takes us to the question of what do we do about all of this? Well, I think both Florida and Texas seem to be taking the right approach. Florida has their new anti-riot law, which, while it is stuck in limbo, is adding a lot of penalties for people that break the law while protesting. In other words, turning into riots, which seems like the right move, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens in the courts. Then you have Texas, which is basically telling the protesters, hey, we're coming for you if you're going to break the law. Which takes me to an article by Andrea Vacciano on Fox News. It reads, UT Austin protests descended to chaos. Anti-Israel students yell at police, pigs go home. In her article, she writes, 100 or more protesters gathered on the campus of the University of Texas at Austin on Wednesday to participate in an unruly anti-Israel demonstration, which is a nice way to put it, I suppose. The rowdy protests invited hundreds of onlookers, some of whom joined in on the anti-Israel chants on the school's south lawn. The Austin Police Department and Texas Department of Public Safety were observed making arrests. Some officers monitored the protest on horseback. The group was heard chanting APD, KKK, IDF, they're all the same. And also were chanting pigs go home at the Texas law enforcement officers on the scene. There were protesters who attempted to set up a few tents but were quickly thwarted by police. The DPS later told Fox News Digital that it made more than 20 arrests. The department said their arrests were made in order to prevent any unlawful assembly and to support UT police in maintaining the peace by arresting anyone engaging in any sort of criminal activity, including criminal trespass. And I think really that's going to be one of the big parts of the solution here is it's private property in all of these universities. Kick them out. If they're trying to intimidate people, kick them out. If they're saying racist, hateful things, ban them. Arrest them if they're trespassing. If they're students, suspend them. Kick them out. Anyway, we're going to have to see what happens next, but rest assured, we'll be keeping an eye on this story as it goes forward. From the To Be Frank show, I am Adrian. Thanks for watching, my friends. I'll see you all next time.